Glad to have you with us here on Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we're going to look at some blockbuster trade ideas for your Seattle Seahawks when it comes to the draft. Could they make a move for a couple different pass rushers from the Washington Commanders? Could they be trading down in the draft potentially? We'll examine some trade scenarios that have been thrown out there by some of the experts and break them down for you coming up in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, with the NFL draft coming up here in just a couple weeks, one of the things I love about the draft is the draft parties, right? We think about Super Bowl parties, but draft parties, you get to have a few drinks in hand, snacks, you get to be around your favorite teams, fellow fans as you celebrate or potentially hate on the draft choices that are made, and get to have that football-type atmosphere without football actually going on. I love the draft and everything about it. Where are you going to be watching the draft from? I'm very curious. You staying at home? You going out, hanging out with your friends? I'm very curious. Maybe you're even going to Kansas City for draft night. I don't care. Let me know in the comments section. Where are you watching this year's draft from? And we'll get started with today's show. So Bleacher Report suggested a possible blockbuster trade idea for the Seattle Seahawks to get not one, but two of the Washington Commanders' two-star edge rushers. That would include Chase Young as well as Montez Sweat, two edge rushers that are still really young. And we've seen flashes from both players early on in their careers. They're expected to get some nice paydays here pretty soon, but does it make sense for Seattle to potentially make a move? Let's go over all that. Let's start out with this comment from Alex K. of Bleacher Report on the possibility. Seattle would be hedging a bet on Young's health by also scooping up Sweat, who has seen action in 59 of a possible 66 games since entering the league as a first-rounder in 2019. In that span, he has become one of Washington's most consistent defenders. So this is the trade idea that was thrown out there by Bleacher Report. Seattle gets not only Young and Sweat, but they give up their 20th overall pick, not the number 5 pick, but the 20th pick, and then a second-round pick at 37, and a third-round pick at 83. So you're giving up 3 picks in the first 3 rounds. But remember, Seattle has 10 picks. So you have some flexibility to work with. But you bring in guys that are pretty talented. They've had a little bit of injury issues, in particular Chase Young, but still relatively young, no pun intended, and they're due some money here pretty soon. So a lot to take into account. I'm going to go over all this and give you some more details and show you some things on both these guys in just a second. Before we do, I want to know, would you make the trade of what you've seen on your screen right now of Bleacher Report's trade idea? Would you make this trade? Let me know. Y for yes, in for no. Tell me in the comments section what you're thinking about this trade possibility. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. This is our pinned comment today. Would you make the trade for Chase Young and Montez Sweat? Let us know in the comment section below. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is not a knock on Chase Young or Montez Sweat at all. Both of them are very good football players as far as I'm concerned. But this seems a bit bizarre to me of the idea of bringing not one but 2 edge rushers into the fold. And you're looking at paying both guys potentially. And Seattle's already kind of tight on cash. We're just trying to figure out what Seattle's going to be able to do to pay their own draft picks, let alone trying to make a trade and pay these guys their second contract that they would be potentially owed besides the money they already have to be paid with their rookie contracts. Chase Young was the second overall pick out of Ohio State a couple years ago, and in that class, he was seen as the guy that was the face of that class where everybody had their eyes on Chase Young ultimately in that 2020 draft. He went on to be Defensive Rookie of the Year and was a Pro Bowler. When Chase Young has been healthy, he has been spectacular for the Washington Commanders. The problem is, though, that he's missed a lot of games. Missed most of last year with a torn ACL. The injury that he suffered started at the end of 2021. Just took him a while to recover. You can't deny the talent, but there is the injury history already there for a young player like Chase Young. Then there's Montez Sweat, and he was a first-round pick in 2020 as well, same time as Chase Young there. and he's had 21 career sacks. He has been pretty solid in his career. And when you look at his reliability, 42 games started in the last 3 seasons. He did miss 6 games last year, but he has been more dependable compared to Chase Young. So if I were to compare these two in particular, I would say Chase Young is the more talented player, but Montez Sweat is the more reliable player when it comes to availability and who you can count on to be dependable here. Both very good players. I think that you look at what they could potentially bring to the Seattle Seahawks, it would be a bonus. It would make this defense better, but it comes at such a high cost of the 3 picks that we've talked about. On top of paying these guys here, ultimately, it sounds nice, but I think it's too much at the end of the day for Seattle to go ahead and pull off. I like the idea. It is bizarre. It is kind of out of left field to be talking about bringing in 2 edge rushers from the same team, but I don't see it happening. If you had to pick one to trade for, though, who would you rather have in your team right now? Would you rather have Chase Young, or would you rather have Montez Sweat? Let me know in the comments section. Type C for Chase Young, type M for Montez Sweat. Let us know which one you'd rather have on your team. With the NFL draft just around the corner, that means draft hats are on sale now, whether you're filling the flat bill version or we also have the baseball cap style, either one. These are the same exact draft hats that you're going to be seeing your future Seattle Seahawks wear on draft night. So when they have their name called by Roger Goodell, they're going to throw on this hat. They're going to take the picture with Goodell. And then when you're at that draft party that we talked about earlier and you're wearing this hat, you're going to go to your friends, I got that hat. And you know why I got that hat? Because I went to chatsports.com/Seahawks draft to get said hat. You can get these today. You can still get them in time for the draft as well. So what are you waiting for? Get yours now, chatsports.com/Seahawks draft. And even beyond just the draft itself, these hats are going to be incredible to wear during football season and really just styling with your favorite team at the same time, too. I love them. Get yours now while supplies last, right in time for the draft, chatsports.com/Seahawks draft. Next up, another trade possibility for Seattle. Not quite as juicy or sexy, if you want to put it that way. NFL.com is suggesting the Seahawks could be trading down from the number 20 overall pick with the Buffalo Bills in trading down to the 27 spot. Let's dive in. Here is what Chad Reuter from NFL.com had to say about this possibility. Seattle general manager John Schneidner has a history of moving back in the first round. At number 27, the Seahawks can still find an offensive lineman, cornerback, or edge rusher who meets their needs. As for where the third and fifth rounders factor in, Schneidner also has a history of trading mid-round selections to climb the ladder in round 2, doing so to acquire players like defensive tackle Jaron Reed in 2016, receiver DK Metcalf in 2019, and edge rusher Darrell Taylor in 2020. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this trade possibility that Chad Reuter is talking about here. The Bills would receive the 20th overall selection. Seattle would move down to 27. And in addition to the 27th pick, they would pick up a third and a fifth-round pick. And think about, Tariq Woolen last year was a fifth-round pick, right? So you are giving yourself better odds, potentially, of landing those star players or those guys that you want to keep to build up a roster. And for me, here's what I put as far as this situation goes. When it comes to the 20th pick for Seattle, one way to look at it. The trade makes sense if they don't have an obvious guy they want at 20. Let's say that there's not a guy they feel is just a home run, a perfect fit that they have to have at that 20 spot. Then you trade down a few more spots, take an offer like the Bills there, and you play your odds. We've seen Bill Belichick do a really good job of this over the years of trading back and just maximizing the opportunities to try to hit on players and just playing the numbers game. It's simple math here, folks. And so if I'm the Seahawks, whether it's that or some of these other picks in the draft, I think you're open to the possibility if there's somebody there that you say to yourself, look, I can't just miss on this opportunity. I think at like 5, for example, with Seattle being in position to grab Jalen Carter, they're going to have to be in a deal where they just simply can't refuse, right? When it comes to 5. I would be very hard-pressed to trade back from that 5 spot. 20, though, with so many different options, potentially, not necessarily that one guy, I think it's a little easier potentially to trade back from 20. So let me ask you before we wrap up today. Should the Seahawks trade back from the number 20 selection? What do you think? Type T for trade, type P for pass. Let us know in the comments section which way you feeling. Should Seattle trade back from 20? T for trade, P for pass. Subscribe to the channel. We have the best Seahawks coverage out there as we're talking about your favorite team each and every day. We're counting you down to the draft. We're going to be live during the draft, so what are you waiting for? Subscribe now for free and join us on draft night. We're going to have a heck of a time here on the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. We'll see you next time.